Yes. Well, not personally.
Yeah. But we've heard good things about him.
We have James.
Hello guys.
Hi.
How are you? How are you? Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I am so frightened to sit beside you right now.
I haven't even got shackles on.
Okay, excellent.
I get to you right now.
Lovely.
We were talking to your producer about the idea of the characters in this series having a bit of moral ambiguity. And I should think for your character in particular, there have to be aspects of him that the audience can relate to, maybe, if not admire. Does some of this come from the performance, or is it basically in the script? Because there have to be some reasons we actually like this guy.
Well, he tells a good joke. And he's got an elegant turn of phrase. You know, he's a very cultured man. So it's difficult, isn't it? Yeah, he's a cultured man who is erudite and academic and has all of the same cultural touchstones as we all have, and yet in his spare time he's cutting the eyes out of young women. So it's that kind of makes him fascinating. Now we know he's a bad guy from the off. There is no ambiguity about that. We know he's a killer right from the word go. So what we have to do is we have to try and create something. The audience, I suppose it's about being deliciously evil. You know, having a certain satisfaction. You know what I said in the screening just now is absolutely true. You know, if you are putting a crochet hook into the belly of Ryan Hardy and gently tugging at his intestines, and that's you don't want to kill him, you just want to cause him a great deal of pain. Especially in America. Americans have fetishized violence constantly, and you know, clearly are very comfortable with it, and they like it in a way that I've never come across in any other nation at all. You know, they have they like it. They like, you know, American violence seems to go together like hand in glove. I mean, they're very uncomfortable with sex and love. You know, that kind of stuff. Oh no, don't show anything like that. But you know, show somebody having, you know, an ice pick shoved into their eye. Yay!
Do you find it more interesting or more difficult to play a character like this, where he's not just the typical serial killer, like you said? He's cultured. He's, you know, I guess could say bordering on brilliant, and that to me is scarier than someone that just goes out and kills people.
For sure. I mean, one of the things I did when I was researching this was I spent about a week in a hotel room in Los Angeles, just hour after hour after hour, watching interviews with serial killers, documentaries about serial killers. I watched nothing fictional whatsoever. I put all the serial killers that we've seen, Hannibal, Dexter, all those people. I'm not interested in regurgitating anything. I wanted to try and get as real as I possibly could. I've lost my thread here. And one of the things... What was your question?
Is it more difficult to play a serial killer that has this intelligence and this brilliance?
Yeah, no, one of the things I did was, Ted Bundy. I watched this famous final interview with Ted Bundy, who was, you know, incredibly cultured man, beautiful three-piece flannel suits, charming smile, and yet the things that he was doing in his spare time were just horrific. So you have to understand, you have to try and understand what it is about serial killers and how they invent a bubble, if you like, a fantasy bubble around themselves of what they believe to be right and real about life, and they create, you know, Ted Bundy we talked in that interview a lot about how it was the porn what made him do it. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty damn sure porn in the early 70s was, you know, pretty damn tame. So, no, Ted, it's not about that. It's about a complete lack of spine in you and a desperate need to control women. It's about power. It's about powerlessness in you. So you have to work back on Joe. You know, I'm not a big believer in the concept of good and evil. They seem rather overly religious to me, and what I do believe in is nurture. And I believe that things happen to people in their lives, way back in their lives, that trigger certain things. And some people go on to become serial killers from those things, and some people go on to become violent from those things, or some people get over it and deal with it. You know, it's like the famous old thing, you know, abused become abusers, child abused. People abused as children often become abusers. Or it's very rare to be an abuser without having been abused at some point in your life, because your moral compass and the boundaries of what you believe to be acceptable behaviour are completely skewed. So, and yet there are also some people who were abused who never become abusers. So, you know, it's incredible. That's what makes this character so interesting. As you can see, I'm quite passionate about it, but it's because it's incredibly morally complex and ambivalent and ambiguous, and all the best characters are grey, not black and white. You know, he's a villain, but you've got to understand, and we'll peel it back as an onion, like you do on an onion, very thin layers week after week, and you know, hopefully we'll eventually come season 7 understand where he's come from, and then we'll perhaps start feeling. It's very interesting doing press sometimes. It's a bit like an open therapy session.
I'm happy to
Tell us more, yes.
I'll be writing you all checks at the end of
I
it.
want to
Even better.
follow up on that, James. I was reading an interview with Mandy Patinkin recently, who said he could only do 2 seasons of Criminal Minds because the darkness, the subject matter just started to weigh down on him, and he didn't feel
Yeah, I know.
comfortable
I read
doing
that
it.
interview as well, but I think we're dealing with different kinds of shows.
Well, what I was going to lead up to is, can you just hang Joe Carroll up in the closet at the end of the day and leave him behind?
English actors, British actors, tend to be quite good at turning it on action and off on cut. You know, if you're playing Hitler, do you go home and, you know, worry about that? If you're playing Macbeth, do you go home and worry about that? No, you go home, you watch TV, you put your feet up and have supper. It's make-believe. And it's only make-believe. You know, that's what it is. It's kids in the playground. That's all acting is. You know, cowboys, Indians, Star Wars, whatever it is. It's.
But you have methody actors in the UK as well.
Yeah, you do. Not many. Funnily enough, not many, because I think a lot of people if you're talking about method, I think a lot of people in the United Kingdom are very aware that being a method actor is a really long, complicated process, and it's not something that can just be served up after a 2-week course at the Actor Centre. You know, this is something you have to study for years before you get it right.
Sure.
And I think the method, as it is hugely and vastly misunderstood and often used more as a masturbatory tool than anything else.
You said, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I was surprised at the end of the pilot that you're back in jail as an actor. Is it sort of, you nervous that you're going to miss out on all the fun that you're sort
You
of...
not think that I had that discussion when I went for meeting with them? When I first went and I said, does this mean I'm going to be in an orange jumpsuit for 7 years, potentially? You know, he'll find his own little way.
You said previously... Oh,
I'm sorry.
no problem.
Sorry, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.